It's time we had a look at our layout options. Lightwright is, after all, a piece of software mainly dedicated to generating paperwork and helping you manage information. So let's have a look at our options. At the bottom of the main window, you've got three tabs: Worksheet, Focus, and Layout. Worksheet is what we have worked in mostly, well, exclusively so far. Focus, we're going to have a look at a little bit later, but first let's have a look at our layout options. The first time you press this button, each time you open Lightwright, it will ask you for a paper size to set. So I'll just leave that at A4 because that's what I'm working with, and it will bring up a default layout. Now this will probably look a bit different for you because I'm pretty sure I messed around with this. And as you can see, there's a few little issues on mine, which I'm hoping won't appear on yours in the default layout settings, but I'll explain what's going on here. So in this layout view, there are a very large number of pre-made layouts you can choose from. We're going to stick with channel hookup for the moment. At the top, you've got a number of elements that you can move around depending on how you want to lay out your paperwork. There are two elements in this header. The top is called short header, and that has things like this: the name of the paperwork, the name of the show, date, the name of the file, page numbers. And then there's a section called the long headers, and the long headers in my view here have disappeared behind the beginning of the actual spreadsheet. The long header contains the information that we've put into our show information earlier in the setup, the show title and the page headers. Now if I drag my show title down, it will move the spreadsheet down and actually make my long headers appear. I'm not entirely sure how I ended up with this slightly odd layout issue, but there you go. If this is also happening for you, that's one way to fix it. Another thing we can do here is add a little picture for our show, because it's nice to have a picture for your show. We do this up here under layout options. There are a lot of options to play with. I won't go into the detail of everything in this tutorial. I expect you'll want to play around with these in your own time. I'm just going to go and select a picture. So under picture, I've got new layout picture or new show picture. Because I want to use this picture on all of my paperwork relating to the show, I'm going to do show picture. I can have specific pictures for specific pieces of paperwork. But I'll choose this, and I'm going to go into my Waiting for Godot folder. I created a new folder in there called Lightwright Resources, and I've put a picture in it of some boots because it's waiting for Godot. That places the picture. I can drag that around to where I want it. I think I quite actually like it in that corner. I can resize it when I grab that corner there, and that actually works for me. So maybe it's a little bit too big. Make that a bit smaller, although it does help my other little layout issue if it is a bit bigger. And that's it. So this is sort of my my header that I can use for different pieces of paperwork. In a way, this view is both a layout tool and a sort of page preview of what my paperwork will look like. I can scroll through different pages with these arrow keys. You can see that the page number goes up. It says page 2 of 2. That's not necessarily true. In the actual paperwork, it will give you the actual total number, but as you're scrolling through these, it just keeps going up. You know, page 303 as I go up now, and if I go back down, it remembers that it's 3. So it doesn't sort of pre-calculate how many pages it would actually be. So in this layout view, don't necessarily trust this number up there. Oh yeah, look, it says note page number of number will be accurate when actually printed. So there's a huge amount of stuff you can edit here. You've got your usual formatting options of fonts, styles, sizes, and so on. You can put things in boxes or not. In here, in the options, you can change the title of the paperwork. The note is something that just appears in this little bracket here, which is useful when you're creating your own pieces of paperwork to make note of, what it is you made this particular piece of paperwork for. You can change your layout lines, how these things are divided. I've got thin lines at the moment. You can change them to thick lines. Major dividing lines, unit dividing lines. There's a huge amount of stuff. You can have one item per page. I would recommend that you print item without. This means basically it prints things that don't have information relating to this particular piece of paperwork, which sometimes is a useful way of showing up issues that you've got. So if, for example, you're creating a channel hookup and you don't have this ticked, then something that doesn't have a channel number won't appear in this list. Now, generally you want everything to have a channel number, so that ticking this means that when you print this off and you will have an item without, it will appear on the list and highlight the fact that you haven't actually assigned it a channel number. So I think it's quite useful to have print items without ticked. Long headers, that's these sort of show headers. I can turn these off on the subsequent pages, so it's only on the front page. Various other options here you are welcome to have a play with. That's fine. Oh, excuse me. Okay, I don't know entirely what just happened there, but here we go. Other options up here, margins. The margins are shown here in the red lines. Again, it's sort of in relation to your print setup, useful to have a play with. And you can choose what columns you actually want to include in your paperwork. Again, many options, so you can customize how you want to set this up for yourself. You can save this layout as a default under File. You have a layout section down here, so you can save this layout. You can save this layout as a particular sort of unique layout for a particular circumstance. If I just press layout, save layout, it will just save this as my default layout. You can see down here, default Lightwright 6 layouts has been saved. So what you can't change in here is the order that things are displayed in. So it's not like an Excel spreadsheet where you can sort of just select a column and say order this by blah blah blah. So the way you reorder things is in the maintenance window. So for example, if we go to something like my instrument schedule, which by default is sorted by positions, you see that the order of my position starts with LX8. I don't like that because I don't start counting at 8. But there's no way of changing it within the layout. However, I can change it if I go into my maintenance and actually do some position maintenance. And in positions, I have a similar option to the one I had earlier in color, which is to alphabetize it. Are you sure? Yes, I am. And as long as I have my spacings right, and I haven't sort of written some positions with a space and some without, these will now be in order of numbers. Again, I would tick keep alphabetized, because if I add any positions in later on, I want them to slot in where they belong rather than be added to the end. Press close. This doesn't live update, so if I go out of my layout to my worksheet and go back into my layout to rejig things, it will now display it in the right order. So to actually then use this paperwork in a to make a PDF out of them or send it out as an email, the easiest thing to do is you can either, it doesn't matter whether you're in worksheet or layout view, you can go to File, print paperwork, and you get options. Again, quite a few options to play with. Let's have a look. So layout, I want to use my default layout. If you have created various different ones, you can choose which one you want to use here. Watermark, again, the same watermarks as earlier. You can have this as a draft or something. Limits, again, I can set certain limits, which means it will only look at particular parts of the system, which can be useful if you're working on a show that has different areas, say a promenade show, for example, or if you want to create some paperwork specific to your overhead, or many possibilities why you might want to limit paperwork to a particular section. I have options here as well to create only partial paperwork for bits. Not sure why you'd want to create blank paperwork, but there you go. So if I want to create a channel lookup, maybe an instrument schedule as well, there's some more options. I can have several. If you're sending it straight to a printer, if I make a PDF, obviously the quantity is probably going to be 1. In fact, if I make a PDF, I probably don't want to create too many in the same PDF. So I would probably go through this process separately for the different pieces of paperwork to create different PDFs. I don't want to print in color. I do have some other options, which I think I'm going to leave default, and I press OK. Now on a Mac, I can just save this as a PDF in my menu here. I can just open it, preview to quickly show what it will look like. And here we are. So I had my draft watermark selected, which goes across like this, and that's the look of my paperwork. So once you have set this paperwork up, it is very quick to regenerate paperwork according to changes you make. So without having to export information into spreadsheets or updating spreadsheets separately, anytime you make changes in your Vectorworks drawing, it gets pulled through into Lightwright. You create a new set of PDFs to go with it, and it's really quick to create a whole set of fresh paperwork that looks professional and looks good and is accurate with every new version of your plan.